You know, these days everyone is besieged with supposed accurate information about nutrition and exercise. With the advent of YouTube, anyone can anoint themselves an expert and hand out information freely about nutrition and exercise. It makes no difference what their background, level of experience, or knowledge. Anybody watching this can make a video, including me. The difference between me and some of the other people, though, is I've been around for, well, I guess it's close to 60 years, and I've studied for 60 years. So I have a little bit of a edge towards most of these people making videos. My videos don't have dancing girls or I wish they did, or, cartoons or fancy graphics. Instead, what I do is give you the facts. And that's what I'm going to do in this video. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some aspects of nutrition and exercise that are just absolute facts. They cannot be argued. They are based in science. So here we go. First one, liquid versus whole food carbohydrate. In a 2000 study, 7 males, not meals, 7 males and 8 females consumed dietary carbohydrate loads of 1,880 kilocalories a day as a liquid in the form of soda or as solid jelly beans. These are not nutritious foods, just want to say, but this is a study. They did this during 2 4-week periods separated by a 4-week washout. In other words, they did it for 4 weeks, didn't do it for another 4 weeks, and then went back to it after 4 weeks. Subjects were permitted to consume the loads however they chose. In addition to baseline measurements, diet records were obtained on random days throughout the study. Body composition was measured weekly. Physical activity was assessed before and after treatments, and hunger was assessed during washout and midway through the treatment. What are the results? The results showed the free-feeding energy intake during the solid period was significantly lower than intake prior to this period. Dietary energy compensation was precise. No decrease in free-feeding energy intake occurred during the liquid period. Accumulating evidence suggests that liquid carbohydrates generally produce less satiety than liquid solid form. So what does all this mean? What this means is that if you're having, let's say, two types of carbohydrate foods, one is coming from a liquid source like soda, fruit juice, compared to a solid source like, natural sources, fruits and vegetables, not jelly beans, which is garbage. Anyway you look at it, the whole food is going to provide much more of an appetite suppressive effect. And in fact, the liquid carbohydrates you drink are going to usually cause you to overeat or overdrink, adding additional calories and carbohydrates. In other words, it will also have the net effect of producing a much greater tendency towards increased body fat. Also, keep in mind that certain fruit juices can be almost as bad as soda. Fruit juice basically is a processed carbohydrate. A lot of it retains some of the nutrients that are found in fruit, but the fiber, which is very important, as we'll discuss later, the fiber has been removed, which makes fruit juice a processed food. I'm not saying that you should completely avoid fruit juice, but eat it in minimal amounts. Don't go crazy. A little glass of orange juice here and there or something like that is fine, but don't think that fruit juice is a health food by any account. Another thing that people wonder about is eating nuts. Nuts have a reputation of being high in fat, and they are. Peanuts, for example, are 76% fat. I have a thing for peanut butter. I remember there was a guy named Clarence Bass who used to talk about being 2% body fat, which isn't possible, but that's another story. But the point is, he listed his diet, and I think in one article, I found it very humorous. He bragged about how he even eats peanut butter. And I said to myself, now how could this guy be so lean and eats peanut butter, which is so high in fat? But then I looked at the diet. You know how much peanut butter he ate? 1 tablespoon. One tablespoon of peanut butter is not going to make anybody fat. I'm sorry. Even though it contains 76% fat, it's 125 calories. You're not going to get fat on that. Much of the fat in nuts also isn't absorbed. This is what they found out over the years. It kind of passes right through the body. And nuts are a good source of nutrients. For example, magnesium and fiber. And nuts contain elements called polyphenols, which there's no essential requirements for, but they provide a lot of health benefits, including prevention of diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's disease. The body, as I said, the body doesn't absorb 15% of the calories in nuts. They literally pass right through you. In one study, almonds were shown to increase weight loss by 62% when compared to eating complex carbohydrates. So there you go. So nuts are not bad. As with anything, you don't want to go crazy on because nuts do have a lot of calories. So you don't eat pounds of it at a time. But having a handful of nuts, probably because of the high fat content, I found myself has a great satiety effect. In other words, if I'm hungry at night, I'll eat like a handful of peanuts or something like that. And it kills my appetite, so I don't eat something bad that would tend to put body fat on me, like carbohydrates. That's what nuts are really good for. But don't go crazy. Every so often, I'll go to Costco or something like that. I'll buy this big jar of cashew nuts, which I love. And I stopped doing that because I can't eat just a handful of cashews. I wind up eating it all through the day. And I went through a huge, it was a jar of them. I mean, God knows how many calories that was. Geez, it's scary to think about. But I realized that I can't eat just a few cashew nuts at a time. Every time I walk by the jar, I was grabbing a handful. So I had to stop buying that jar of cashew nuts. You know, you have to work within your own limitations, as they say. Another fact that should be obvious to anybody with even a half a brain is you want to avoid overly processed food. Overly processed food is just garbage. It's almost like fake food. And not only that, but these foods they're specifically designed to have ingredients that like refined sugars and certain types of fat that overly stimulate the pleasure center in the brain. And what this does is it stimulates the release of the neurotransmitter dopamine, which is considered a reward neurotransmitter. In other words, when you use cocaine, the reason why they feel so high and great is because cocaine prevents the reuptake of dopamine. So dopamine also is involved in sexual pleasure. So dopamine is you can call it a happy neurotransmitter, and certain food elements are known to stimulate dopamine. But by doing so, they more or less make you addicted to those foods. So you wind up eating too much and getting fat. And that's the problem with processed foods. They usually contain very poor, low-grade sources of protein, such as grain sources that don't compare to animal proteins. And literally, they have no redeeming value. So when people tell you don't eat processed foods, that's a truism. Don't eat processed foods. They're garbage. They're just TV dinners. They're just garbage. Look at the ingredients. Don't take my word for it. A lot of them are loaded with, for example, high fructose corn syrup. It's crap. You know, it's garbage. They have way too much salt. Some of these TV dinners have enough salt for 2 days worth of salt intake. It's crazy. Don't eat processed foods of any kind. Another misconception a lot of people still have, which surprises me, is they think coffee is bad for you. Now, I have to point out, some people don't metabolize coffee well because of what they call genetic polymorphisms. What they do is they tend to, the caffeine in the coffee, it's processed more slowly than usual. As a consequence, if they drink, let's say, more than a cup of coffee, they get some side effects. They start maybe having some heart palpitations, tremors, and that kind of stuff. Those people do have to be careful with coffee. However, for most people, coffee is not only good food, it can be considered a health food. Coffee is the most common source of antioxidants in the American diet. Even people that will never touch a vitamin C and E will drink coffee, and sometimes that's their main source of antioxidants. Because the coffee contains natural compounds, and I'm not talking about caffeine, I'm talking about other compounds in coffee like chlorogenic acid, other compounds, polyphenols, which are antioxidants and definitely have health effects and help prevent a wide range of diseases, as well as lowering the risk of type 2 diabetes by 47%. A 2012 study published in the New England Journal of Medicine found an inverse relationship between drinking coffee and premature death. In other words, you want to drink about, ideally, about 3 to 4 cups of coffee a day, assuming each cup is 6 ounces. If you go past 4 cups, the benefits don't increase, but some of the negative effects might increase for certain people. So the ideal amount of coffee to drink for health is 3 to 4 cups a day. I myself drink 4 cups a day. I have these very large 22-ounce coffee cups, and I drink 2 full cups, which is probably more than 4 cups a day. But sometimes I only drink 1.5 cups of those large cups. A 2016 study found that drinking coffee helps to prevent the onset of Alzheimer's disease. Again, it's due to the antioxidant effects of coffee, the anti-inflammatory effects, and so on and so forth. So if you're worried about Alzheimer's disease, you should drink coffee too. Another truism, another thing that's a fact, is you should eat fatty fish. Now, I'm going to full disclosure, I don't like fish. I don't eat any fish. I just can't stand fish. When I was a bodybuilder for about maybe 25, 30 years, my lunch every day consisted of tuna fish, canned tuna fish. If I used the oil version, I would drain all the oil out and just eat it with a fork right out of the can. I would eat tuna fish, 1 to 2 cans. And if it was off season, if I wasn't preparing for a contest, or even if I was, I would eat also about half a pound of non-fat or low-fat cottage cheese. That was my my lunch for about 25 years. And I burned out on fish. I never liked any excuse me. I never liked most fish anyway. Like, halibut, mackerel. These are all great sources of omega-3, but I never liked them. The only kind of fish I ever ate was tuna. So I don't eat any fish at all. Because of that, I take a fish oil supplement. I take a dose of fish oil that's equivalent probably to several pounds of fish a day because, again, omega-3 fatty acids are extremely important to health. And now, if you eat, I should point out, if you eat fatty fish, such as, again, salmon, sardines, halibut, mackerel, these are all fatty fish. They're the best sources of omega-3 fatty acids, what they call the preformed or bioavailable. That's EPA and DHA. If you eat fatty fish, you should eat it at least 2 to 3 times a week. If you eat fatty fish 2 to 3 times a week and don't fry it, then you probably don't even need to take a fish oil supplement. But for everybody else, you should take a fish oil supplement because there's no other way you're going to get these preformed omega-3 fatty acids. And even if you're a vegetarian, they now have vegan sources of omega-3 fatty acid supplements. Studies show that people who eat the most fish have a low risk of several conditions, including heart disease, dementia, and depression. Fish contains other protective nutrients, such as taurine, that also impart health benefits. Taurine is very good for your heart. It interacts with what they call GABA receptors in the brain. GABA is the primary brain inhibitory neurotransmitter that helps you fall asleep. It helps relax you. Taurine is very good for your muscles. Also does a number of things. Fish is probably the best source of taurine. There's a controversy that some of you might know who are more versed in nutrition. It has to do with this stuff called TMAO, which is produced in the body from the nutrients choline and carnitine. When they enter the body, they're sent to the when they get to the liver, they're turned into this stuff called TMA. I'm talking about carnitine and choline. It's turned into TMA through enzymes. And then when it gets into the intestine, certain bacteria in the intestine convert it to TMO. Now, why am I saying this? Because you'll see in a second, TMO, in some studies show, has a close relationship with the onset of cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis specifically, kidney disease, and even brain disease. Now, I should point out these things are controversial because, and I'll tell you why, a very simple reason why. Fish has been known to prevent all of those conditions. Fish. And guess what? Fish has naturally 66 times more TMO than the meat sources that contain carnitine and choline. So in other words, if TMO was really causing these conditions, anybody who eats fish, even 2 to 3 times a week, it should be epidemic. All these conditions, heart disease, brain disease. Yet the truth is, The people that eat fish, it's just the opposite. They have lower rates of cardiovascular disease, lower rates of brain disease. So I have big doubts about TMAO. I've written about it in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. I'm going to have an update about it soon, including nutrients that if you are worried about TMAO, I'll tell you nutrients that you can consume that'll completely prevent any TMAO harmful effects. Next thing, that's a fact. This is an undeniable fact. You got to get sleep. You got to get sleep. There's no way around it. I've talked about this in past videos. A lot of people walk around. I see them all the time. I hear them on videos. They brag about, I get 4 or 5 hours sleep. I'm doing fine. I don't need more than 4 hours sleep. I say bullshit. The brain doesn't work like that. There's a system in the brain called the lymphatic system. And what happens is, without making a long story short, you have your cerebral spinal fluid, which kind of bathes the brain and the spinal cord. At night, it kind of seeps into the brain, and it clears out all the debris that it's accumulated in your brain, including abnormal proteins that are associated with Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's. It's kind of like a sweeping away of garbage in your brain. The lymphatic system, it's only activated in the deep stages of sleep. So if you get only 4 or 5 hours and you don't get enough of the deep stages of sleep, which happens about every 90 minutes or so, your lymphatic system will not be working optimally, and you're causing the buildup of all this gunk in the brain that sooner or later is going to catch up with you. I'm talking in the form of Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease and that kind of stuff. Also, poor sleep definitely drives insulin resistance. In other words, it inhibits the activity of insulin, and this in turn is related to obesity. Also, sleep disrupts your appetite hormones, again, increasing the chances of obesity. And of course, sleep reduces your physical and mental performance, which is pretty obvious. And remember, just one night of sleep, poor sleep, can lower testosterone levels by 15%. And that was shown in a study of men that were only 19 years of age when testosterone levels peak. In other words, these guys had peak testosterone, yet just missing one night of sleep or having poor sleep, like 4 hours, lowered it 15% the next day. And the reason for that is when you don't get enough sleep, you get a buildup of cortisol. Cortisol is a catabolic hormone produced in the adrenal glands that opposes the action of testosterone. One study linked insufficient sleep to an 89% and 55% increased risk of obesity in children and adults, respectively. One of the underlying reasons for this is that you have these proteins. One's called ghrelin, the other one's called leptin. Ghrelin increases appetite, leptin decreases it. When you don't get enough sleep, ghrelin levels go up, which makes you very hungry the next day. Leptin levels go down. So, you got to if you're really interested in being in good shape, looking good, and having good cognitive or thinking ability, don't ignore sleep. It's really true. Another important thing to do is feed your intestinal microbiome. What is the intestinal microbiome? It's a collection of various microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, other organisms that live in the colon. Years ago, we thought the only function of the intestinal bacteria was to help produce certain vitamins like vitamin K and biotin. Now they know it's, the research on the intestinal microbiome, it's impossible to keep up with. It's burgeoning, it's gigantic. 99% of your immune system basically interacts with the intestinal microbiome. It affects everything. It affects carbohydrate absorption, protein absorption, body fat levels, brain neurotransmitters, everything, heart function. Everything is affected by the intestinal microbiome. You want to have a certain beneficial, you want to have a balance of bacteria in there. A lack of balance of bacteria in the intestinal microbiome, it's called dysbiosis, and it leads to a number of diseases, including increased body fat. Now, how do you treat your what's the best way to deal with your intestinal microbiome? Just like I said before, avoid processed foods, avoid refined sugar, avoid excessive intakes of saturated fat. All of these things tend to favor the negative types of organisms that live in the intestinal bacteria. Very, very bad for your health. How do you feed the intestinal bacteria? With prebiotics and probiotics. Prebiotics are stuff like sauerkraut and other fermented foods. These things encourage the growth of the beneficial bacteria in the intestinal microbiome. The easiest way, however, is to ingest good amount of soluble fiber, such as found in oats and fruits, vegetables. This type of fiber cannot be broken down by the human digestive system, but the intestinal microbiota are able to break it down. And in doing so, they produce what they call short-chain fatty acids. There's three of them: acetate, propionic acid, and butyrate. Butyrate is especially interesting because it has a tremendous anti-inflammatory effects. It helps prevent colon cancer. It heals the intestine, so you don't get this leakage of lipopolysaccharide. I don't want to get into that, but let me put it this way. Keeping your intestine healthy prevents systemic inflammation. Butyrate can travel to the brain. It prevents the abnormal buildup of proteins in the brain, misfolded proteins like beta amyloid that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. So, you want to make sure you get enough fiber and don't ignore it. I mean, this is the problem with diets like the ketogenic diet and the so-called carnivore diet. I mean, they focus on protein or lack of carbohydrates. Now, fiber is carbohydrate, but it's undigestible. In other words, it doesn't add to your carbohydrate intake. It basically just passes right through you. When it gets to the colon, it's worked on by the intestinal bacteria, which is a good thing, see? However, when you go on these diets, you don't eat fiber, you're going to get an imbalance. You're going to get this dysbiosis that I mentioned earlier. And again, sooner or later, it's going to catch up with you. And you're not going to realize it. You're going to probably think it's due to something else, whether it's stomach problems, heart problems, gaining fat all of a sudden. It's all because of a dysbiosis, a lack. I can't overemphasize the importance of the intestinal microbiome. Another thing that's again should be common sense is you should always want to ensure an adequate fluid intake. Few are aware that drinking water can actually boost your metabolism by 25 to 30% over 1 to 1.5 hours. In fact, there was a study I wrote about years ago where they compared to drinking, I think it was 15 ounces of water, to taking the substance ephedrine. Ephedrine was a famous fat loss drug years ago, also a minor stimulant since it was only one molecule away from being methamphetamine. But anyway, what they found when they compared just drinking water to ephedrine, both of them, are you ready for this? Both of them boosted the metabolism the same amount. Drinking water was able to boost the metabolism as much as ephedrine. That's amazing because water, unless consumed in excess amounts, has no side effects. Ephedrine does. So, what else can I say? A 2010 study published in the journal Obesity examined drinking water in middle-aged and older adults and showed that drinking only 2.1 cups of water 30 minutes before each meal increased weight loss by 44%. Drinking water before a meal in middle-aged and older adults increased the weight loss by 44%. So, I mean, is that a simple way to increase weight loss or what? Don't overcook your meat is another one. Don't overcook your meat. A lot of people, I remember when I used to eat in restaurants when I worked for the magazines, we'd all go out to restaurants. A lot of the people would order well-done meat, which always made me cringe because well-done beef is not healthy. First of all, when you overcook meat, it alters the protein content. That's the first thing. And, one of the main reasons you eat meat is because of the protein content. Not only that, but when you overcook meat, you produce carcinogens such as heterocyclic aromatic amines. These things are known carcinogens that are produced when meat is overcooked. In fact, years ago, they came out with a study. I talked about this in my Applied Metabolics recently. The French version of the Food and Drug Administration issued a report years ago saying that creatine was a carcinogen. But then when you looked at the actual report and you read the details, it turns out that they were referring to they were looking at a study in which the creatine content in burnt meat was analyzed, and it did have some carcinogenic effect. So in other words, if you overcook meat to the point of it being just absolutely burned, then some of the creatine in the meat could possibly be turned into a type of carcinogen. So, if you're going to eat beef at all, don't eat it where it's burnt to a crisp or even well done. It's not healthy. Not healthy. Another thing that everybody should be doing is taking a vitamin D supplement. While vitamin D can be obtained from exposure to the certain spectrum of UV rays from the sun, in order for that to happen, the sun has to be in the right place in the sky. In other words, it has to be at a certain angle in the winter in certain latitudes. It's not like back in the northern areas. The sun's not in the right place in the sky. You're not going to get the right spectrum of UV to convert the cholesterol in your skin into vitamin D. There's other conditions such as being older, having darker skin, having more body fat. All of these things interfere with the natural production of vitamin D in the skin from exposure to sunlight. So what do? The easiest way to get vitamin D, take a vitamin D supplement. The great thing about vitamin D supplements is they're always tiny. They're tiny, the smallest little pills. I've dropped vitamin D pills on the floor. They're so small, I couldn't even find them. They're tiny. A baby can take a vitamin D supplement. The best way to determine how much you need is to go have a lab test for 25-hydroxy vitamin D, which is the activated form of vitamin D in the body. If you're low, which is below 30, you definitely need to start taking it. If you're in the 20s, then I would say you're actually deficient in vitamin D. The optimal hydroxy D level is between 55 and 65. And you can get that by taking about 2,000 units of D a day. Since D is a fat-soluble vitamin, it should always be taken with a little bit of fat. You don't need to eat a big fat meal. Two little spoons of butter on a piece of bread will do it. You just have to have a bile flow. This goes for all fat-soluble vitamins. In order to vitamin E, K, A, and D, you have to have a little bit of a fat intake to stimulate bile secretion to absorb the vitamins, or they pass right through you. Another one that a lot of these stupid videos talk about is to avoid fruits and vegetables. Really dumb. 5 servings of fruit and vegetables is considered the minimal amount for health maintenance, but the truth is, for maximal health benefits, such as prevention of various diseases, cancer, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, and so on, you want to take at least 11 servings or more of fruits and vegetables. Between the two, vegetables is healthier than fruits, but whole fruits aren't too bad, again, because of the fiber content. Don't believe the crap about fruit being bad for you because of the fructose. Most fruits contain about 6% fructose, and the fiber in the fruit prevents problems with fructose. Vegetables contain nutrients such as sulforaphane in cruciferous vegetables like broccoli that are not available in any supplements, contrary to what you might hear. And the 1 or 2 were supplements that do contain sulforaphane. They have to be refrigerated. They have to because sulforaphane just disappears. It breaks down very fast, and these supplements are incredibly expensive. You got to be crazy. Broccoli's cheap as dirt, and you can spend $250 for a sulforaphane supplement. Doesn't make sense to me. Another thing, don't skip the cardio. A lot of people think that cardio causes muscle loss, and but the truth is that only happens when excessive amounts of cardio are done, like 2 hours or more at a time, and you're on a low-calorie diet, and you already have low body fat levels. Okay, cardio work is not going to burn out muscle. That's garbage. Aerobics or cardio is the best exercise to condition the cardiovascular system. A lot of people think if they train fast with minimal rest between sets, they can condition the cardiovascular system, and that's true to a certain extent. But without going to the dynamics of it, the oxygen intake, so on and so forth, no type of weight training can equal specific cardiovascular or aerobic exercise. It's just not the same. It has to do with a principle called specificity of exercise. If you want to work the cardiovascular system, you do cardiovascular exercises. If you want to work the muscles, you use muscle exercises like weight training. That's the way it works. And since cardiovascular disease is the number 1 killer, don't avoid aerobic exercise. Best exercise from burning fat to oxidizing fat. You also want to make sure you ingest extra virgin olive oil. It's loaded with unique polyphenol compounds to protect health. The primary monounsaturated fatty acid in olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, is called oleic acid, and it's known to activate the cell-protecting protein SIRT or sirtuin-1, which helps increase life extension. when you go on a calorie restricted diet, one of the reasons why it seems to help animals at least live longer is because it activates SIRT1. Well, so does oleic acid, and it's 10 times more effective than resveratrol, which is another SIRT1 activator. Extra virgin olive oil offers tremendous protection against heart disease, and it's a key component of the Mediterranean diet, which is considered the best overall diet for health, the true Mediterranean diet. I'll talk about that in Applied Metabolics. This one, I have to say this over and over again. Eat whole eggs, not just the whites. Almost all the nutrients found in eggs are found in the yolk, not the whites. The whites are almost pure protein, very few nutrients. And it's a myth that eggs are bad for you because of the cholesterol content. Studies show they have no effect on blood cholesterol in the majority of people. In fact, a massive review of 263,938 people found that egg intake had no association with heart disease risk. The reason I'm laughing is, full disclosure, the amount of eggs, I know this sounds funny, the amount of eggs people ate in that study was 1 egg a week. 1 egg a week. Who eats 1 egg a week? Tell me. Who eats 1 egg a week? They used 1 egg a week and they found it doesn't cause heart disease. I'll just leave that hanging. I'm not even going to talk about that. And the last thing I want to say is, and again, I've talked about this in prior videos, there's no such thing as spot reducing. You still see videos where people are, displaying their 6-packs and talking about doing ab work every day. Famous bodybuilder who won the Mr. Olympia a couple of times, I recently read, he still tells people to do 1,000 reps of ab work every day if they want to have great abs. It's sad. Because there's no such thing as spot reducing. The only thing abdominal exercise does is work the abdominals. The fat on the top that's hiding abdominals, the only way to get rid of that is diet and overall exercise. You can't reduce fat in one specific area. When the body burns fat, it burns it systemically all over. And that's the way it works. So forget this idea of doing hundreds of reps of ab work daily or doing stupid exercise like seated twists, which does nothing but it puts a shearing effect on your lumbar vertebrae where you will get arthritis of the lower spine. You'll have a painful lower back for years. And trust me, this is the voice of experience talking. Because when I was a kid, I used to do a lot of seated twists. Today, I have severe problems with my lower back. Because of that, it created a arthritic effect that it hurts me. I have lower back pain all the time. So if you're young enough to avoid that, take my advice. Don't do seated twists. It's a garbage exercise. It doesn't reduce your weight. You don't even need to work your obliques because your obliques contract when you do any type of abdominal exercise. The only people who need to do oblique work, the obliques are the muscles on the side of, what they call love handles, sometimes when there's too much fat on there. The only people that need to work are people involved in a lot of lateral exercise where they're doing a lot of twisting motions, athletes. For them, maybe doing a little, but not seated twists. There are other exercises that you can do that are much better for the obliques than seated twists, which is, again, a garbage exercise. So that's about it. I know some of these things I've covered in past videos, but I wanted to do just a little brief outline because just about everything I said in this video, my point of this video is that they're just indisputable. These are all based in scientific fact. These are not controversies. They're fact. In other words, no one can dispute them. And anyone who does is just full of crap, period. So anyone who says anything different than what I said here, don't believe them. If you want to have more information on nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research, fat loss techniques that really work, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy, women's health and fitness, supplement science, the best source of information is my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. 40 to 50 pages every month. It's like receiving a monthly ebook. No advertisement, just pure facts based on current science and my own, again, 58 years of experience and study, which is unmatched by anybody that I know of who's still alive. And I'm barely alive myself, so we're going to... Anyway, no, I was just kidding. The thing is, so subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. And when you subscribe, I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page. where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, and general health. Also answer questions. The Applied Metabolics Facebook page is a private page for subscribers only of my Applied Metabolics newsletter. I also have a email portal on my Applied Metabolics website. Again, only for current subscribers. They can submit short questions, which I'll be happy to answer. I don't answer unsolicited questions either on my website or underneath these videos. You can leave comments. You're welcome to leave comments under the videos. I don't answer them. I'm sorry, I don't have time. The only people I answer are current subscribers to Applied Metabolics. So if anyone else wants to answer any questions on the videos, feel free, but don't expect them from me. And, you know, people keep ignoring me. I keep saying this at the end of my videos. People still keep answering questions, but you're whistling in the wind. I'm just not going to answer them. I just don't have the time. In fact, the truth is I don't even look at it most of the time. So anyway, if you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, I know this was a really long video, but it covered a lot of topics. But at least it's not those hour-and-a-half, 3-hour videos that I see on YouTube. Look, I look at these videos and I look at the time, like 2.5, 3 hours. Who the hell has time to sit in front of a video for 3 hours? Give me a break, anyway. That was just a little rant. Anyway, take care. Thanks for listening.